We begin my top 24 tight end rankings. Remember that tight ends who played on Thursday night or if they're on bye are not included in these rankings. So if you notice somebody missing and they fit under that criteria, that's why. We begin with mid to low end tight end twos this week. We have Noah Gray, Josh Oliver, Austin Hooper, Isaiah Likely, and Noah Fant. Noah Gray is coming off a 2 touchdown performance. I don't think that happens again. But due to there being so many teams on bye, I think he's a low end tight end two this week. He's a good bet to get a couple of targets. I think he gets a couple grabs in this game, but I don't think he has, in general, a ton of upside. And I definitely think this past week was a complete fluke. Then we have Josh Oliver against Chicago. So it's a reasonably tough matchup. But even with TJ Hawkinson playing, he's still been seeing some time on the field. He saw over 50% of the snaps this past week, and he's getting targets. Even this past week, he had a couple of targets. I think that, once again, due to the scarcity in terms of the amount of tight ends that you can even play this week due to bye weeks, that he's a low-end tight end too, because he's pretty likely to at least score you a couple points, but I just don't think the upside is tremendous with Hawk back. Austin Hooper is the same story. Hunter Henry is the real tight end one for that team, obviously, but Hooper's been regularly involved from week to week, and so I think he gets a couple grabs just like some of these other guys. Then we have Isaiah Likely. If he didn't have Mark Andrews ahead of him, he would be much higher up these rankings. He's a really talented player. He has these spike weeks from time to time. I think he sees a couple grabs this week, but I don't think this is going to be one of those tremendous tight end one weeks. And now we have Noah Fant against the Cardinals. He did miss practice on Wednesday with a groin injury, so there is a chance he doesn't play in this game. But at this point in time, assuming he does. So in the past 3 weeks, he's had at least 4 targets. So, for somebody that's a tight end two, at least he's seeing a consistent amount of volume in this offense. It's just the upside isn't tremendous. And so I think, just like with some of these other guys, he gets a couple of grabs, but I don't think even especially in a tough matchup, that he has a particularly great day for us in fantasy. And now we have mid to somewhat high-end tight end twos. We have Cole Kmet, Tucker Kraft, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, and Theo Johnson. So in the first game, sans Shane Waldron, Cole Kmet was actually thrown to. We like that. It's just the volume wasn't great, and it's a tough matchup. I think he sees some more volume in this game, but until we see, a consistent 6 targets a game, which might never happen, it is really tough on a week-to-week basis to trust him. Then we have Tucker Kraft against San Fran. He has had a couple of ridiculous weeks. This past week, he was targeted 1 time and finished with nothing, so he scored 0 fantasy points. I think he definitely has a better day than that. But against Fred Warner and the defense of San Fran, I don't think he has as much upside as he does other weeks. And it's really tough to tell as to where Green Bay is going to pass the ball any given week. Then we have Mark Andrews against the Chargers. I think that with the wild inconsistency from week to week with him, it's really hard to trust him. I think he's a tight end 2 this week. The Chargers defense is relatively stingy against tight ends. And I do think that Zay Flowers is going to have the better game between the two of them, as in terms of being the main focal point of the passing offense. Now we have Sam Laporta. In 2 of the past 3 weeks, he's had 6 targets, so we like that after basically being non-existent throughout a big stretch of the year. Against Jacksonville, I think he sees a couple of grabs, but I really think that JMO and ASRB are going to have much better days in the passing game for Detroit. But I still think he's a tight end 2 with upside. I don't have him scoring a touchdown, but if he does, he's going to finish much higher in these rankings. And then we have Theo Johnson. So in each of the past 2 games, he has 6 targets. That's with Malik Neighbors playing. With the addition of DeVito in terms of replacing Daniel Jones, I do think that they're going to try to get easy stuff for him. And so I do think that Theo Johnson is going to receive a solid amount of targets. It would shock me if he had less than 5, and especially in a plus matchup against Tampa Bay that they should have to throw the ball excessively in. I think he's a solid high upside tight end 2. If you like what you're seeing and hearing so far, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. And make sure to check out my quarterback, running back, and wide receiver rankings as they come out. Now we have tight ends that I think are in that high end tight end 2 to low end tight end 1 range. We have Dalton Schultz, Luke Schoonmaker, Jatavian Sanders, and Zach Ertz. So Dalton Schultz, in 3 of the past 4 games, has had at least 6 targets. He had 7 this past week, even with Nico Collins playing. Although, to be fair, Collins played, it was 47% of the snaps, I believe. We'll see an uptick there. But even in a tough matchup, volume, when you don't have an elite tight end, is just about everything. And so I think he's a safe floor option due to the volume that he's currently getting. I just don't think he's a really high upside option. Now we have Luke Schoonmaker. Once Ferguson went down this past week, he had 10 targets and 6 receptions. I really like him being a safety blanket in this game against Washington. And so I think he's a really high floor, but potentially limited ceiling player because I don't think the offense is really going to be scoring too many points. And now we have Jatavian Sanders against Kansas City. A fun fact about him is he's had 60 yards or a touchdown in 3 of the past 4 games. And so I do think in a matchup against Kansas City that just gives points to tight ends and a game in which they will almost certainly be losing by quite a bit, I think he's going to get a solid amount of volume, and I think he's going to have a pretty good day as a low-end tight end 1. And now we have Zach Ertz. He's had 8 and 7 targets in each of the past 2 weeks. Against Dallas, I think he's going to have a very high floor game, but I don't think he's going to have a ceiling game. The man is 34 years old and still doing it at the NFL level. Props to him. And I do think that he's a top 12 option this week. And now we have tight ends that I think are mid to low end tight end 1s. We have Hunter Henry, Dallas Goedert, Will Dissly, Cade Otton, Jonnu Smith, and TJ Hawkinson. Regarding Hunter Henry, he's had at least 6 targets in 4 of the past 5 games. Volume is king. It's a plus matchup against Miami. And so I think he's going to be a very high floor option for us with a potentially high ceiling. I just don't have him scoring a touchdown this week, but I think the volume is going to be quite good. Then we have Dallas Goedert against the Rams. He's had either 60 yards or a touchdown in the past 2 games. I think he's going to see decent involvement. I think he's a much better player than the volume suggests. And so I think that he does score a touchdown, but I just think that he's not going to have a tremendous day in terms of yardage and receptions. Now we have Will Dissly against Baltimore. He's had 6 targets in 4 of the past 5 weeks. I think he's going to continue to see a good amount of volume. I don't think he scores a touchdown, but I think he's very involved in what's a tremendous matchup that should necessitate quite a bit of throwing in this game. Now we have Cade Otton against the Giants. So it is the toughest matchup that you can draw. They also have Mike Evans back, almost certainly. He logged a full practice today. Today is Thursday, the day in which I'm recording this. And so I do expect him to play, meaning Cade Otton is no longer the top dog easily in the passing game. I think he's going to be the number 2 option. He'll probably receive more targets in general than either individual running back out of the backfield more often than not. I just think that his days of being top 3 option were always going to be limited because the volume just probably isn't going to be there quite as much anymore. But I still think he sees quite a bit of involvement and is still a tight end 1 because he still should be thrown to quite a bit. Then we have Jonnu Smith. He is coming off a career game. I definitely don't expect that to happen again, specifically the yardage and touchdowns, but he has been involved steadily for basically the entirety of the season. And so I think he's going to continue to be a tight end 1 for us. And I do think he scores a touchdown for a second straight week. And now we have TJ Hawkinson against Chicago. They do allow the 10th fewest points to tight ends, and he is coming off a kind of a bum week, but the week before that he was great. I think he's going to continue to be a mid tight end 1 with spike weeks. The quarterback play from Sam Darnold hasn't been tremendous, but this past week it was pretty solid. And so even in a tough matchup, I still think that he's going to be a tight end 1. And now we have elite tight ends that I think are going to be top 5 finishes this week. We have Kelsey, McBride, Kittle, and Bowers. So this past week for Kelsey was atrocious, but before that he had 12, 16, and 12 targets. I think he's going to see more involvement than he did this past week. And I still think that he's going to be a regular top 5 option until he bottoms out due to age. But against Carolina, I don't think they're going to be able to do anything against him. I don't think the passing volume is going to be tremendous, but I think he's going to get it done in the amount of time necessary for them to have to throw. Now we have Trey McBride against Seattle. He has been fantastic in terms of the receptions and yardage. He is, in general, one of the most consistent tight ends. It is ironic, though, that his only touchdown this year is a rushing touchdown. But he's still going to see a good amount of volume. It should be a high-scoring game between the two teams. And I don't have him scoring a touchdown here, but I still think that he's going to be a top 5 option for us. Then we have George Kittle against Green Bay. He is still getting it done. It's been reported that he is going to play this week, so I'm pretty confident he will, based on that. Against Green Bay, I don't think they're going to be able to do anything to stop him, and he has been consistently dominant basically every single week. And now we have Brock Bowers against Denver. He's coming off a historic performance this past week. In the previous game against Denver, he had over 90 yards and a touchdown on 8 receptions. I don't think he repeats that performance, and I don't think he scores a touchdown, but I still think he's the tight end 1, and I think he sees a ridiculous amount of total volume in this game. And so to conclude, tight ends that I think are going to be mid to low end tight end 2s this week, we have Noah Gray, Josh Oliver, Austin Hooper, Isaiah Likely, and Noah Fant. Tight ends that I think are going to be mid to high end tight end 2s, we have Cole Kmet, Tucker Kraft, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta, and Thea Johnson. Tight ends that I think are going to be high end tight end 2s to low end tight end 1s, we have Dalton Schultz, Luke Schoonmaker, Jatavian Sanders, and Zach Ertz. Tight ends that I think are going to be mid to low end tight end 1s this week, we have Hunter Henry, Dallas Goedert, Will Dissly, Cade Otton, Jonnu Smith, and TJ Hawkinson. And tight ends that I think are going to be elite tight end 1s this week are Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, George Kittle, and Brock Bowers. All right, so you know the drill. Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Let me know below in the comment section and let me know why. With that being said, if you like what you've seen and heard, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel. And make sure you check out my profile on X. I'm going to leave it in the description. As well as make sure you check out my quarterback, wide receiver, and running back rankings as they come out. Thanks.